Martell Holt thought he was being clever. He thought mocking, laughing, and playing tough would protect him. But instead of making him look powerful, it exposed him. The smirk on his face turned into a spotlight on his pride, and the jokes he cracked became daggers aimed right back at him. Because when Melody finally decided to speak her truth, it hit harder than anything Martell could have imagined. What he tried to turn into a game of embarrassment flipped into a storm that shook the very ground beneath him. And in that moment, Martell wasn't the one holding control anymore. He was the one scrambling, caught in the very trap he set. This isn't just about petty words. This is about a woman's pain being mocked, her strength being questioned, and then her resilience tearing through the lies. What happened between Martell Holt and Melody Shari is not some shallow reality TV spat. It's a story about betrayal, disrespect, survival, and finally, the truth rising louder than the noise. And the way Martell's mocking backfired has left people questioning if he'll ever recover from the storm Melody unleashed. So, let's break this down step by step because this story is bigger than shade, deeper than gossip, and it shows exactly why you should never underestimate the strength of a woman who's been silenced too long. Martell Holt wasn't always the man fans see today. At one point, he was the picture of a family man, a husband with 4 beautiful kids, and a wife by his side who believed in his dreams. To the world, Martell and Melody were the golden couple of love and marriage, Huntsville. They had the looks, the ambition, and the storyline that fans couldn't get enough of. But behind the polished surface, cracks were already spreading, and those cracks told a story of betrayal that would eventually shatter everything. Martell's affair wasn't a secret forever. At first, it lived in whispers, late-night speculation, and hushed conversations. But secrets have a way of clawing their way out. When Melody found out the truth, it wasn't just about another woman. It was about years of disrespect, years of lies, and years of Martell thinking he could play both sides without consequence. The woman he cheated with wasn't some nameless fling, she was part of the scandal that defined Melody's public heartbreak. And while Martell acted as though he was untouchable, the truth was burning holes in his image. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just destroy trust, it destroys identity. Melody was forced to face the humiliation of a broken marriage in front of cameras, fans, and strangers who debated her pain like it was just another storyline. And while she carried herself with dignity, the scars were real. Instead of support, Martell often chose mockery. He made light of her tears, dismissed her concerns, and even ridiculed her in moments when she was at her lowest. That became his pattern. When confronted with Melody's truth, he responded with arrogance and jokes. But what Martell didn't realize is that every laugh, every smirk, every slick comment was being recorded not just by cameras, but by the audience. Fans saw it. They remembered it. And they started to notice the pattern, a man mocking a woman's pain while pretending he was the victim. That kind of behavior doesn't age well. It builds tension until eventually, it explodes. And explode it did. It started with court appearances where Melody's composure spoke louder than Martell's shade. While she was standing there, trying to protect herself and her children, Martell was focused on ridiculing her, joking about her white outfit, as though what she wore was more important than the trauma she was trying to heal from. To him, it was funny. To the audience, it was cruel. People saw a mother fighting for her safety and her peace, and a man mocking her like she was just another opponent in his game. But here's where everything shifted. Instead of letting the mocking define her, Melody started speaking her truth louder than ever. She went on record about the manipulation, the betrayal, and the way Martell twisted narratives to make himself look innocent. She didn't scream. She didn't throw insults. She laid it out with raw honesty, and it hit like a storm. Because the thing about truth is that it doesn't need jokes to survive. It doesn't need mockery. It stands on its own, and when Melody finally let hers out, Martell had no defense. Suddenly, the same smirk that once made him look confident made him look small. Fans weren't laughing with him anymore, they were shaking their heads. What once looked like charm now looked like immaturity. What once seemed like confidence now looked like arrogance. Martell's mocking had backfired, and it exposed him for what he really was, a man more focused on appearances than accountability. And that was just the beginning. Because Melody's truth wasn't just about the past, it was about the present. She revealed how Martell continued to insert himself where he wasn't wanted, how he blurred boundaries, how he used their children as excuses to provoke conflict. She talked about the ways he painted himself as the victim while refusing to take responsibility for the pain he caused. And the more she spoke, the more people realized that her silence had never been weakness, it was strategy. She had been protecting herself, protecting her kids, protecting her peace. But once she chose to speak, the storm couldn't be stopped. And Martell? He was caught off guard. For years, he controlled the narrative with charm, denial, and mockery. But this time, every word Melody spoke was a reminder that his jokes couldn't erase the truth. The storm of honesty was too loud, too powerful, and too undeniable. The fallout was massive. Fans rallied behind Melody, praising her strength and courage. They flooded social media, calling out Martell's disrespect and demanding accountability. Hashtags trended, comments poured in, and the court of public opinion was clear: this wasn't entertainment anymore. This was about a woman reclaiming her voice after years of being mocked and dismissed. And the man who thought he could laugh it off was suddenly the one being laughed at. The emotional impact of this cannot be overstated. For Melody, this was about more than just clapping back, it was about survival. When you're mocked for your pain, it cuts deeper than any insult. It makes you feel invisible, as though your suffering is just a punchline. But Melody refused to stay invisible. She turned her scars into a spotlight, her truth into a weapon, and her resilience into a shield. And in doing so, she gave countless women watching permission to do the same. For Martell, the impact was just as real, but in the opposite direction. His image took a major hit. The more he mocked, the more fans questioned his maturity, his integrity, even his role as a father. Because let's be honest, what kind of man belittles the mother of his children when she's fighting for her peace? That's not strength. That's weakness disguised as ego. And now, instead of being remembered as the man who built something with Melody, he's remembered as the man who tried to tear her down and ended up tearing down himself. The kids, too, are caught in the crossfire. Every public jab, every mocking word, every fight spilled onto screens is something they'll eventually see. And no matter how much Martell tries to spin it, they'll know who mocked and who stood strong. That's a legacy you can't erase with jokes. The powerful ending to this story is clear: Martell Holt's mocking didn't destroy Melody, it destroyed him. What he thought was clever became careless. What he thought was power became proof of his weakness. And what he thought would silence Melody only amplified her voice. Because when the storm hit, it didn't wash her away, it revealed her strength. Melody walked out of the fire with her dignity intact, her crown still shining, and her story still being written on her own terms. Meanwhile, Martell is left with the pieces of a reputation he may never be able to rebuild. That's the real backfire, not just public embarrassment, but the lasting truth that his mockery couldn't compete with her resilience. And if there's one lesson this entire saga leaves behind, it's this: you can laugh at someone's pain, you can dismiss their tears, you can mock their struggle, but the truth always comes. And when it does, it doesn't whisper. It roars. Melody's truth roared like a storm, and Martell Holt learned the hard way that storms don't care about your smirk. They tear down anything not built on honesty. So, while Martell thought he was mocking his way into control, Melody was quietly preparing her truth. And when she finally unleashed it, the storm didn't just shake him, it exposed him. That's not just karma. That's justice. That's the story of how Martell Holt's mocking backfired harder than he could ever imagine, and how Melody's truth rose like a storm that no one could ignore.